I implore you guys to sign up for it, because what we do is we write a lot of books about social selling. We take a lot of experts such as Carl, and we have webinars with them and turn them into guides and white papers. And we teach you about the latest social selling strategies as well. So we'll go ahead and share a link with Social Selling University's sign-up page after the webinar and everything. But go ahead and take a look at it if you guys have the chance. The post-webinar social selling gift. Recently, Inside View and Social Selling University have come out with their book, The Sales Intelligence Blueprint. Now, sales intelligence is a bit of a difficult concept to understand for some people. So we went ahead and turned it into a really neat book. You learn about company watch list, smart agents, target list building features, industry profiles, and data versus intelligence. So Carl's going to be talking a little bit about it today, so get a sneak peek, but we're going to go ahead and send it to you after the webinar. So that's kind of a fun thing. Last but not least, before I hand over the mic to Carl, we have a trending hashtag here that we love to use. So if you have your Twitter account, go ahead and pull out your Twitter account right now. And go ahead, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and carry on the webinar. If you like any facts about the webinar, have any questions, go ahead and tweet it, and also use the hashtag #SocialTalk. I'm going to go ahead and see if you guys are listening. I'm going to send, I hope Carl is in mind, I found his Social Sales Revolution slide share from Dreamforce last year, and I went through it a little bit this morning. It's unbelievable. Really great slide share from, and I can understand why it was met with rave reviews. So go ahead and once again pull out your Twitter accounts and start tweeting using Social Talk. So I'm going to go ahead and pass over the presenter to Carl right here. So just give me a second. Okay.
Thank you, Kevin, and welcome everyone. I am honored to be in front of you guys today. Really excited to be working with the Inside View team. Along with LinkedIn and Twitter, I've been watching them from their early days, and really they've taken off and become a big part of this Sales 2.0, this social selling community that we're building that's leveraging modern forms of communication to help generate opportunity and close more deals. So basically, the presentation that I'm going over today is a rather Seussian parallel, but really we're going to be talking about the who's of social selling. And when I say the who's, it's relative to the people that we want to talk to and learning a little bit about who they are. And doing this is really a lot easier than people think. It just takes a good set of best practices and then a methodology that allows you to really uncover who's talking about things that are important to your product or your offering, as well as getting enough contact intelligence and enough information about that person to be able to engage in a manner that works for them. So we're going to review social listening a little bit, talk about who we should be listening to and why, then go into a little bit about how companies like Inside View can help us understand who is talking. And then finally talk a little bit more about what I'm focusing on, which is actionable social business intelligence. Once you gather the right data, how do you engage with people and how do you make the most of the who's that you're talking to? So real quick, can everyone hear me okay? Kevin, is my voice coming through?
Oh, yeah. No, you sound absolutely perfect. Keep it going.
Okay. Excellent. Before we go further, it's always good to find out. Now, I like to consider the social landscape a very tiny thing. While there are millions and millions and millions of transactions happening constantly across Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and all the other social networks, as well as forums, blog posts, the online community is massive in the amount of information it's sharing. However, it's minute in its actual size. It's virtual, right? So it's almost like Horton looking at this purple flower and trying to understand that there's millions of people speaking and acting and doing within that little pin drop. So how do we break through and figure out what voices or what inhabitants we want to listen to. How do we uncover who is who through social listening? Well, what we need is a way to magnify the image of each who, a way to take a conversation and breaking it down into the core players and then take those people and really get a clear understanding of who they are. By doing this, we can then give a playbook to our sales team and teach them how to engage with people at different levels within an organization or within a community of, social network of people talking. So why should we bother to go after these people? Well, just a little bit of history for those that don't know. For those that have heard this a million times, I apologize. But there's 1 billion people on Facebook. Just shy of 90% of the world is on some social network. And there's 500 million tweets that go out a day. This means that there are people that you want to sell to are actively online and communicating. We need to engage with as many of them or all of them. If your prospects are out there, you should be connected to them, right? But then, how do we engage with them? First, we're going to have to filter out and figure out who we want to talk to, because there's a lot of noise out there. Then we go and do the research needed to figure out exactly who they are. We'll touch on that a little bit more in a sec. And then finally, we engage. Engagement cannot happen properly unless we've actually built a 360 view of who it is we want to talk to. So who exactly do we want to listen to? We need to look for the who's that feel the pain, the who's that are asking for a solution, and the who's that are talking about our competition. This should sound really familiar to salespeople out there. Why? Because it's what we do all along. The difference is we're just changing the medium we're doing it at. So many people get into the social landscape, start talking on Twitter, connecting with people on different social networks, and they just become pitchmen, billboards on the social highway, instead of doing what we've been trained to do, which is to engage with the people that are feeling the hurt that we can solve and engage with them in a manner that makes it a lasting business relationship. And finally, who should be listening within the organization? Top to bottom. Everyone in a company at this point, if they have access to a computer, should at some point helping that organization with their social conversation. So I want to give you a concrete example. One of the companies I worked with, a company called Teambox, they do productivity app, like project management software, but it's a little more social. We built our business initially based on filtering Twitter and LinkedIn. Mind you, this was a few years ago. We didn't have any advanced tools. We just used a simple TweetDeck account and collected information and hunted for people discussing our competition, hunted for people that were frustrated because they weren't being as productive as they could, and then we hunted for the who's. So we took all this information and we went and we looked up people based on their Twitter account or their LinkedIn account and really got an understanding of who they were and tied it back to the people, made sure we were talking to the right people. We then engaged with them through the network that they communicated with us. So in other words, if someone said they were frustrated with Basecamp on Twitter, we would build a Twitter relationship and try to turn that into a phone relationship or some other form of communication. We leveraged this more than anything else we did, more than email campaigns, more than collecting data from SEO, more than website collection. About 40% of our sales came from people that we first started talking to, from commenting on a blog post, in a forum, from Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. So it wasn't just that we did it because we felt like we needed to be on the cutting edge. We did it because it worked. And it really bolstered our early stage sales because even though it was a little bit of work not having a tool like a Radian 6 or a Brandwatch or one of these tools that actually filters for you, it was worth it because somewhere in the range of 1 in 8 people we talked to bought. So it works, but it's not just that it works because we were listening, it's how we were listening. And that what we did was we really built a focus on understanding who was talking. And I've got to be honest, I wish the Teambox had the foresight to use Inside View, because it would have saved us a lot of time with Google searches, with searches within networks. We would have had a really clean way to understand the who that we were talking to. Now, it went beyond just role in industry. We went past, finding out that John Q was the project manager at Cisco, or someone was the C-level, the COO at some small company. We actually looked beyond role in industry and company and looked at habits. So once we found someone, we searched and tried to figure out where they were talking, what they were talking about. We tried to figure out how we were connected with them and build relationships through mutual relationships. And finally, if we could find it, what groups are they a part of? What likes do they have? Where could we find information about these contacts before we engage with them to have a better way to engage? And then finally, if possible, once we initiated the relationship, or even if we could figure out before, we try to look at what forums, what groups they spent time in, where they were most active, and then what their voice actually was. So not just that they were talking, but in general, what were they talking about? Beyond just our product, but were they Trekkies? Were they really concerned about security issues? I mean, all these things can help lead towards an initial engagement that's much clearer and much more precise than simply saying, oh, someone's talking about us, let's treat them and ask if they need any help. So I'm going to pass this back to Kevin so he can share just a little bit about how Inside View can help you with getting this contact intelligence, or as they call it, sales intelligence. Kevin?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Carl. Folks, I don't want to give you really a product pitch. All I want to do with this is just share to you the kind of tools that are out there and everything, and also kind of give you an idea about what our tool does, but also what you can do. So with Inside View has list building features. And the thing that's really great about it is that it narrows it down to that who's your who. Kind of what Carl's saying. By the way, I love the topic. If you guys love the topic, shoot me a question or use hashtag social talk. But Carl, man, you nailed it with the the theme here with Horton Here's a Who. But anyways, with the list building feature, then Inside View does, you can narrow it down to the most granular levels. Now, rather than going ahead and searching for these for your who's throughout the internet, what you can do is you can go ahead and you can build a list with you can start with job functions and then narrow down the C level. But what you look at, if you look down, only show people with email addresses, but also show people with what kind of social network. So you can narrow it down to LinkedIn or Twitter. So only show people, for example, in sales with a C level, who have an email address, but also who have a LinkedIn account. That narrows it down to a list in your targeted audience that you can go ahead and sell to effectively, as opposed to having your sales reps go out and spend hours upon hours looking for these people. It goes ahead and you can build this list and spend 10 minutes building it and keep correcting it. So that's kind of a cool feature that we have with Inside View. And Carl, do you want to go to the next one really quick?
Absolutely.
Thanks, buddy. One of the other great things, too, is Carl is mentioning, well, where does our who spend time? What does our who have to say? So what Inside View also has is we have what's called a watch list feature. Now, in most cases, let's say you build this list. You build this list of contacts. It's fantastic. It's great. You have your list. Your salespeople have your list and everything like that. What do you do with it then, though? Are you going to check on every single one of them every single day? You're going to go ahead and look at their LinkedIn profile, look at what they're tweeting, everything like that. That's great, but it takes a lot of time researching, and that's the time that you should spend selling, not researching. So what Inside View has to go ahead and combat this is what's called a watch list. What Inside View does is sends daily emails to sales professionals about what their prospects are mentioned online or through social media. And essentially what that is what you can do is you can build a list using the list building features, and then you can take those contacts, so you have about 25 contacts or so, and add them to a watch list. And what's really great is that you can receive emails every day about whenever your prospect is mentioned online or is tweeting. So let's, if you look right here, we just used the example of Mark Benioff. This is an email that I took a screenshot of a couple days ago. I'm following Mark Benioff, Coca Sexton, Philip Fernandez, and Mike Volt. And these are just the top two things that I went ahead and snagged. And Mark Benioff was mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, 10 days or 9 days ago or something like that. Not that you're going to go ahead and reach out to Mark Benioff, but I mean, let's say that it's one of your prospects. I mean, that is a trigger event right there. That's something that without this kind of feature, you would have to almost accidentally land on, as opposed to where this can be delivered to you. And also with Coco Section, Matt, you can see the kind of tweets. And that was the kind of thing that Carl talked about with Teambox, how his reps were finding all these conversations online and then turning it into sales calls, reaching out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, then turning it into.
Yeah, and Kevin, if I may,
yeah.
If we had been using Inside View, we would have actually had even greater results because we couldn't get through and filter all the content that we needed every day, and we couldn't do this cycling. We had to pick our spots and really, go after what we consider the lowest hanging fruit possible because there was so much data and so much information, and it was so unstructured because we were just using. And I use TweetDeck all the time. It's a great tool. It's a free tool, but it doesn't give you these layers of content and data. It doesn't give you an easy way to go beyond just seeing and talking. We had to do all that research manually. To have it all structured and listed this way and be alerted as things changed or as people fit into our requirements would have saved us an absorbent amount of time.
Absolutely, and it's huge. That's why we like to preach about social selling in this regards, because it's delivered to you. It's delivered to you basically. It's a really phenomenal tool. And the thing is, in my opinion, and again I'm biased, but I really think that this kind of product is the future of sales because you have so much data online. Just what you were mentioning earlier. So much noise that's coming out with emails, with internet, with social media. And this is all delivered to you on one platform, and it's even delivered to you in a timely manner. So that's again, I didn't want to do too much pitching, but just the tools that are out there. So take it away.
Thank you. And this leads into, no matter how you do it, whether you're using a tool or not, what you're trying to get towards in understanding the tool that's talking is the empowered connection. And this is really, of everything we talk about today, the crux of the advantage of social selling. An empowered connection, knowing exactly who you're talking to and how to engage them in a way that's relevant to them. Almost setting your buyer off in a sense of not being prepared to push you away or question you or challenge you as a salesperson because you are so familiar with them already. It's instinctive. When someone speaks our language, when someone understands our needs, when we feel like someone is already speaking to us in a way that resonates to us, we are far more receptive than if we're talking to someone cold or we're talking about our agenda. The empowered connection is about making the conversation about their agenda from the beginning and minimizing the need for discovery. You can confirm your assumptions, you can learn, but you're starting from a place of knowledge, which gives you an advantage when it comes to initiating the conversation. It is much harder to brush off someone who resonates than someone who doesn't. So if you're able to take a look at someone and understand exactly what's important to them and know that they're the right person to talk to, you get to stay on top of the status of the who's in that organization and really kind of walk into every sales opportunity empowered and prepared. So this touches into really my focus for over the last year and the thing that I'm really trying to promote out there. I want to make this clear. This is a philosophy, and it is not really an active day-to-day. This is not a sales in the sense of I'm trying to get you to contact me about this because it's how I make my bread and butter. It is more a mission, is the windmill I'm tilting, to get people to change their selling behavior for the sake of the buying community. Buyers are not, the buying landscape has changed dramatically over the last decade, and especially in the last 2 years. Buyers are really doing crowdsourcing of information. They're looking at what's relevant and what their peers think, and salespeople cannot look at traditional selling practices and think they're going to have the same result because the buyer has changed. So what we really need as a community is what I call actionable social business intelligence, Action SBI for short. It's really a simple thing. It's being alerted that you should get engaged in a conversation online and the information needed to be contextually relevant to that conversation. I'm going to read this, even though it's right there in front of you. It's engaging with the right who the right way, and then making the most of the who we are talking to. So again, it's engaging with the right person, the right contact, in the right way, both mechanically and conversationally. So if people are, if they put out a tweet on Twitter, but they tweet once a week, but you see them really heavy in a forum or in another network, you go to that other forum or network. If they're the type of person that you already know from experience, like a phone call, you pick up the phone and call them. But you also have a playbook of how to engage with them and understand what it is they're talking about so you can be relevant to the conversation. It's a 5-step process. And basically, it has to start with listening, but then quickly researching, as fast as possible reacting to the conversation, and then the other 2 pieces are reporting, knowing what it is, and this isn't reporting in the sense of historical intelligence, it's up-to-the-minute reports. Your research turns into the report necessary for a sales rep to know how to engage. So it's listen, research, react, report, engage. And this 5-step process goes from what's going on out there to how the sales rep actually connects. So again, like I said, the right who, the right way. It should start with getting the intelligence and understanding who it is you're talking to, but then one of the other beauties of our social landscape is no one is very far away. Most of the people that you want to engage with are just a connection or 2 away from being a relationship. So leverage those connections. Really look at how you're connected to people on LinkedIn, how you're connected to people on other networks, and use those connections to your advantage. Someone saying, hey, this is my buddy Carl, meet Kevin, has a lot more power than just coldly going up, even when you understand. Then, once you connect with someone, make sure you understand what their concerns are. Forget your agenda for a moment. Walk away from your objectives. Your first objective is to make sure that you understand their concerns. Lead with what assumptions you've made from their conversations online. Quote them, if you can, from being online. And then, from there, dig in a little deeper. I don't need to teach you sales. Really, that's the goal. And then uncover what interests your who. So beyond just knowing what they're talking about or what they're concerned with, dig a little deeper. You know, are they a Trekkie? Are they a fan of, yachting? Do they, are they heavily engaged in their church group or their online church community? These things are important. It's not that you're necessarily looking for alliances, but you're understanding a little bit more about who they are, and you're getting all this information for free without having to ask them. And then, this sounds like a big deal, but this is something salespeople can do instinctively every day. Design an engagement plan that incorporates all these aspects. We do this on the fly. Good salespeople, they're constantly looking at how to engage with someone based on the information they have. Well, now you're going to get a lot more information. You're going to get a lot of good information. Use it to your advantage and quickly build a plan that involves reaching out to someone the right way. So we built a Medicare supplement insurance website. And this is was a little unique experiment for me. I mainly work with high-tech companies. I mainly work with, internet-based or, productivity apps or all these different types of software technologies and applications. And in this particular case, I was working with a group selling insurance. They were selling Medicare supplements to seniors. So we needed to find the right people, and these are people that really qualified for the service that we were offering and that were actively trying to figure out what to do next. So we set up tweet blog post filters, specifically looking for people asking about Medicare, talking about retiring, wondering what they were doing next. We went to a lot of different blogs that were about, senior vacations or planning, your retirement, et cetera, and we listened, right? Then well, this is pretty easy. Once we found a person, we went and surrounded them. We figured out what they did professionally. We knew enough about them so that when we contacted them, our insurance rep, who was probably one of 10 that called that week, actually knew something about them. It was unbelievable the reception we got when we called, John Q and said, hey, I know you're retiring from teaching, or I know, your contractor business is, giving it to your children. The things we knew ahead of time got us business. Almost double. We had a 45% greater chance of getting a sale from a social call than from cold calls, and even the insurance leads that came in through dialing that insurance company. We didn't have as great a chance of getting those deals as we did the ones where we started with a social conversation. That ties right into making the most of who we're talking to. We need to contact people the way that we feel will be the most receptive manner of contact. If someone's tweeting, more than likely we want to send them a reply on Twitter. If they're commenting on a blog post, we want to get engaged through the post, but then try to figure out another dynamic way to add them on a network or reach out to them. Right? We want to take the conversation initially in the public forum they're in, but as quickly as possible try to filter it down to a one-on-one conversation. And this takes a little bit of finesse and a little bit of style. So you've got to give someone a reason to offer up their email address or their phone number or get permission to use them. Just because you can collect the data, and it's very easy from a Twitter account to get a name, to go into Jigsaw or Dun & Bradstreet and get their contact info. But not everyone wants to get a phone call because they tweeted about your competition. Make sure you really, converse with people in a way that leads them towards a one-on-one conversation. But don't just assume because you have the intelligence, you have the data, you should use it. Right? Add them on as many networks as possible. Even if they don't turn into a sale, like-minded people do like-minded things. If you can build a strong relationship with someone on a social network that doesn't buy from you but likes you, they will help connect you to other people that probably will buy from you. So gain access by adding them on networks and use that, right? And then think socially. Constantly look for people that can help you sell. Again, the buying platform has changed. If you have other people doing your work for you, if you have customer evangelists, if you have people that are giving you recommendations and references and telling them that you are a great person or your product is a great offer, it will expedite your sales process to a great degree. And then to piggyback on that, constantly leverage other who's. People within your company, your CEO, your sales engineers, within their company, look for connections, look for other champions, and then across the social landscape, those people that, like I said, can help you champion your efforts. That is really the crux of a good, actionable social business intelligence strategy and a good way of going after who's and getting a little bit more intel about who they are and being a little more prepared when you reach out to them.
Okay, right on. Well, we got a couple questions here, actually some really good questions, Carl. Thank you very much for the presentation and everything. Again, unbelievable. I mean, it was learned a lot from that, but we still got a couple questions here. So I'm going to kick this off because this is a question that we probably get in every webinar about social selling. And this is from Jay Belmont. And he says, Carl had mentioned from top down, everyone should be listening to the social conversation. What recommendations would you have to recommend getting our older sales generation involved in the conversation? So he uses the example as his boss still refers to that Twitter thing. And I can attest to that. My father doesn't. I don't think he even knows that Twitter's still around, or something. Or and he's a sales guy. So how do you get this older generation that's been on the phone for the last 20, 30 years or so to start using Twitter and social selling?
It's a great question, and I can only say that it's a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge, but data, right? There's outside data and there's your own personal data. Outside data, all the wonderful things that Inside Views did, that Salesforce has collected, that all these companies that are in the social selling landscape have collected, showing the benefits of social conversations. Fear. Your competitor's doing it. You've got to do it because they're doing it, right? You can't be the laggard when it comes to a sales practice. And I mean, think about this. In 1996, we were barely using CRM, and fax was the #1 way to receive an order, right? 16 years ago, which, you know, is not even very much a long time, email was a concern. People did not send orders through emails. People did not send PDFs back and forth. 10 years ago, in 2002, there was still a question of whether or not electronic business was going to take off, right? I mean, we cannot look at the buyer landscape and say that Twitter thing. We have to understand that more people are talking about you on Twitter than anywhere else in the world, whether you know it or not. So, I mean, really, the threat of being left in the dust. And then finally, and this might be the most powerful, give examples. Every time there's a deal or an opportunity that started from a Twitter conversation or a social anything, make sure that the older guard knows, right? I mean, good salespeople, whether they've been around for a year or 50, are constantly sharpening the saw, are constantly looking for ways to improve. Not all salespeople, but the good ones. So it shouldn't be a question of age. It should be a question of, here's another tool, here's another way to engage with buyers, here's a better way to communicate with people now that they're communicating this way. You know, sink or swim. And if they're really resistant, it's only a matter of time before they go away. As Mr. Benioff likes to talk all the time, the CIO who doesn't understand the social strategy will not be a CIO for long.
Quick shout out to RC. Sorry, I think it's Weiser. Says, don't discount the baby boomers' use of technology. 6 years old and I'm here. So I gotta give him a quick shout out. Thanks for joining us. That's we don't want to discredit you, or I mean,
and that,
the older
that
generation
just reinforces
in general.
my point.
Yeah,
that just reinforces my point. I don't think this is an age barrier. I know that there are plenty, you know, middle-aged to senior salespeople and executives and everything that are engaged and very much a part of the social landscape on both sides of the fence. It is more a question of behavior and personality. And I would gander that in some industries where sales reps tend to be more old school, where they might not even be using CRM yet, they're still using their Rolodex, right? Those might be harder places to get people to go. It's not an age question. It's a question of mentality and a question of desire to improve or, you know, increase your skill set.
All right. I got another question from Nick. This is actually I was going to actually ask you this, Carl, because this is a really big question. It has to do with sales. And he says, more important, how do you convince your sales manager that browsing Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn can be more effective than blindly cold calling? And that kind of goes in lieu just with how do you motivate your sales team about this, about social selling? And
well,
like you said, blindly cold calling is just not the way to go these days.
Another great question, and I am going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here just for a minute to understand that. I will not blindly say that going out and scouring the social networks is a better amount of time spent than blindly cold calling, because there's too many variables. Industry, type, how big your company is, how big the market you're focused on is, how much it is a communicated market, right? I mean, if you're selling airplane engines, there might not be a lot of people tweeting about it. Probably a good idea to call the people that make, you know, airplanes directly, right? So I'm not going to just blindly say that it is better. I will tell you that in most cases, it's a complementary benefit at the very least and does have a greater degree of value in some situations. but also what we did at Teambox is archaic, and I would never do it again. To answer the question now, I would go to my sales manager and try to encourage them to find a way to push down data, meaning go trial a Radian6 type. Go use one of these social monitoring tools, build some filters and delegation that gets the information to you. Meaning as the sales rep, you shouldn't be the one scouring the networks. You should be getting actionable social business intelligence where a notification informs you that John Q, a project manager XYZ company, actively is complaining about your number one competitor, right? And as a sales manager, they should be thinking about how between themselves and marketing they can build this funnel, this lead generation, lead cultivation tool to make it so that you have more opportunities, right? With that said, I think that people that are good at glancing at TweetDeck or a tool that allows you to quickly look at streams and cherry pick leads is a very valuable thing that you can do while you're cold calling, right? I mean, I personally would be dialing and scouring at the same time. And if you can show that to your manager and say, hey, look, let me do these filters. While I'm making calls, I'm going to go through and try to pull out more data. I'll make lists, and I can either research these people or you can get them researched for me. But these are people actively talking that have a greater, probability of becoming an opportunity. I know I kind of went in a little tangential circle there, but hopefully I answered the question.
No worries at all. I mean, it's great. I mean, it actually kind of leads into our next question from Ron here. He says that social selling can apply to all verticals, but do you specifically have any kind of specific examples? I mean, because again, social selling, just like using social media for marketing or just in general, social media is really noisy and everything. So where are the kind of the sweet spots, or how do you narrow it down for your sales guys so they're not just pretty much diving into social media hoping to come up with something?
So this is a question that's not easily answered and absolutely case by case. So you've got to examine several aspects, and this is really the crux of what I do when I engage with someone at this level, is you've got to ask yourself the very similar questions you ask yourself when you start your initial sales strategy, right? What's my initial target demographic? And in general, when you do this with a product, you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, who am I going to sell my product to? You have to add another wrinkle when you go to the social landscape. And that other wrinkle is not just who am I selling my product to, but who that I could sell my product to is a voice in the social landscape. So in general, just to kind of follow up on that, I could be selling an integrated circuit. And this particular circuit, I really need to talk to the project managers at specific electronic types of companies, right? Lovely example there. Sorry about that. Anyways, so I need to sell the circuit. I'm going to go after project managers. That's my initial assumption. Problem is project managers don't talk about it online. The people talking about it online happen to be the UX design people that are looking for circuits that are smaller than the ones they have. We make the world's smallest circuits. So now I know I'm going after these designers, right? Going after the designers that work for the project managers, and I'm building champions, right? So you have to look at your target demographic. You have to adapt it to the social landscape, and then you have to be really specific. You have to be willing to dismiss the people that don't fit in the mold. Just because someone's talking about you doesn't mean that you should engage with them. You really want to ask yourself from your own history, if I go down this path, does it generate a result? So if I talk to this design person on Twitter, I have a 60% chance of getting an opportunity. I'm going to talk to everyone I can find, right? But if I talk to project managers, I get nowhere. Even though that's the person I've been calling and it's effectively been working calling them, it might not be the same through a social channel. cutting through the noise is the hardest part of any of this. And I'm not here to sell you products, and this isn't something Inside View does, but if your company wants a serious social sales strategy, you absolutely need to get a enterprise level or a high-tech level social monitoring tool, social listening tool. One that allows you to filter, clean, and delegate. Ideally, that ties into a CRM that collects data from a tool like Inside View. If you have these tools properly connected to each other, within seconds of someone saying something, you can have an alert going to a rep telling them who to reach out to, and they can take a quick glance at all of the data available online about that person. That's actionable social business intelligence.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
You know, we're just kind of wrapping up the time here. Yeah, no, not really to me. More questions here. That was great. Just one quick thing. I have to answer that really quick, just with a really kind of a fun example. We had a couple weeks ago. We have a salesperson. They use what's called they use Hootsuite. So if you guys have heard of Hootsuite, basically what you can do is you can take all of your social streams and put it onto one platform, but you can also follow keywords. And what he does is he follows his competitors. I'm not getting into the competitors in general, but basically he follows his competitors on Twitter. And one person had tweeted out their frustration with his competitors, like, "Hey, did you know that your data list is really, really outdated?" Da da da. And he reached out. And he didn't say, "Hey, give me a call. That sucks," or anything like that. It was just really simple. He said, "Hey, we've got this sales intelligence cheat sheet you might want to take a look at." It wasn't a sales pitch. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a, "Hey, I got something available for you if you're looking for an alternative." The guy took a look at it, reached out, said, "I love it. Let's set up a call." They set up a call, and right now they're in the middle of a deal. So it's just it's just constantly updating. I mean, you know, monitoring the small stuff. I think is really great as well. So I mean, just always keeping your ear to the ground. That was kind of a cool story we had. But other than that, we're wrapping up here with the webinar, and I just have to say this is a phenomenal webinar. I really appreciate all of your questions, you guys' attendance and everything. Thank you so much, Carl. A pleasure. Thank you so much for coming out here and teaching us a couple of things about social selling. It was really great.
Yeah, I'm glad that I could be a help. And my contact information is on the board there. If anyone wants to reach out, ask me any other questions, get any links to any of the published documents that I've done with Salesforce or any of the other groups as far as that. And I'm assuming this probably will get online too. Be happy to, feel free, Kevin, to share this document. It's a public document at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we'll definitely be sharing all of your information. Then also we'll be sending